Somewhere in southern Iran, a mother dropped her son off at school. She had just started her shift as a midwife when her phone rang. The school. An urgent message. The war had just started. Come pick him up. She couldn't leave her patients. Not yet. Just a few minutes. Then, the earth shook. 168 children did not come home that day. That was day 1 of this war. We are now on day 11. And the question every American needs to be asking tonight is not whether this war is being won. The question is, what is it costing? When we last checked in with you, this war was in its early days. US and Israeli strikes had begun on February 28th. Iran was retaliating. The world was watching. Now it is day 11, and the picture is significantly darker. Iran says the war has killed more than 1,255 people inside the country and injured approximately 10,000. Across the entire region, Iran, Lebanon, the Gulf states, Israel, the total death toll has now surpassed 1,700 people, with hundreds of thousands more displaced. Iran is not only absorbing strikes, it is hitting back hard, and it is hitting America's closest partners in the region. Iranian attacks on US military assets and regional infrastructure have continued in Kuwait, Qatar, Saudi Arabia, and the United Arab Emirates. In Bahrain, at least 32 people were injured, including children, in an Iranian strike on the island of Sitra, south of the capital Manama. Kuwait intercepted 6 drones. The UAE's air defense systems engaged incoming missiles and drones. Saudi Arabia shot down a drone heading toward the Shaiba oil field. And on the American side of the ledger, the Pentagon confirmed the identity of the 7th U.S. service member killed in this war, Sergeant Benjamin Pennington, 26 years old, from Glendale, Kentucky. He died from injuries sustained during an Iranian attack on a U.S. base in Saudi Arabia on March 1st. 7 Americans dead, more than 1,700 total across the region. And Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth said Tuesday that today would be the most intense day of U.S. strikes inside Iran yet. We are not winding down, we are escalating. On day 10 of this war, something happened that will shape everything that follows. More than a week after Iranian Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei was killed in US-Israeli strikes on February 28th, Iran officially named his son, Mojtaba Khamenei, as his successor. The 56-year-old has close ties with Iran's Revolutionary Guard, signaling a continuation of his father's hardline stance. Iranian state media prominently covered rallies across the country where thousands gathered to show public support for the new leader. For a moment, there were questions. Could new leadership mean a path to de-escalation? Could a new voice change the direction? Iran's Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi answered that question directly on Tuesday. Iran, he said, would continue fighting for as long as necessary, directly contradicting Trump's insistence that the conflict would be over soon. And then came a statement from one of Iran's most senior advisors that should be read carefully by every American watching tonight. Kamal Karazi, foreign policy advisor to the Supreme Leader's office, told CNN that Iran is prepared for a long war and that the war would only end through economic pain. He ruled out diplomacy entirely. His exact words, "I don't see any room for diplomacy anymore." Iran is not looking for an exit ramp. It is telling the world directly that it intends to make this conflict economically unbearable. And given what has happened to oil prices over the last 72 hours, it may be succeeding. If you have been to a gas station in the last week, you have already felt this war in your wallet. Here's why. Before this conflict began, roughly 20% of the world's oil supply passed through the Strait of Hormuz every single day. That is approximately 15 million barrels every 24 hours, moving through a narrow waterway between Iran and the Arabian Peninsula. That waterway is now effectively closed. Iran-linked vessels have been the only commercial ships transiting through the strait. The last non-Iranian commercial ship to pass through was a Chinese-owned bulk carrier on Saturday morning. Oil prices spiked to nearly $120 per barrel on Monday, heights not seen since the aftermath of Russia's invasion of Ukraine in 2022. That level could translate into a national average gas price surpassing $4 per gallon. Gas prices in the United States have already risen by nearly 50 cents, roughly 17%, since the war began on February 28th. And the people warning about what comes next are not fringe voices. Saudi Aramco, the world's largest oil company, warned of what its CEO called catastrophic consequences if oil flows through the Strait of Hormuz don't resume. The CEO, Amin Nasser, said, and I am quoting directly here, "While we have faced disruptions in the past, this one by far is the biggest crisis the region's oil and gas industry has ever faced." Trump's response came on Truth Social. He posted, "If Iran does anything that stops the flow of oil within the Strait of Hormuz, they will be hit by the United States of America 20 times harder than they have been hit thus far." He also told CBS News he was considering taking over the Strait of Hormuz to ensure it remains open, but legal analysts pushed back immediately. Under international law, specifically the UN Convention on the Law of the Sea, the United States has no jurisdiction over the Strait of Hormuz. Its waters fall under Iranian and Omani sovereignty. Meanwhile, G7 energy ministers held an emergency meeting Tuesday to discuss releasing strategic oil reserves. The International Energy Agency, which collectively holds more than 1.2 billion barrels in emergency stockpiles, also convened an extraordinary session. According to sources, the U.S. believes a coordinated release of 300 to 400 million barrels, roughly 25 to 30% of combined G7 reserves, would be needed to stabilize markets. The global economy is now directly entangled in this war. And the longer the strait stays closed, the more severe the consequences become, not just at the pump, but in supply chains, inflation, and economic stability worldwide. We cannot tell you the full story of days 9 through 11 without returning to something that happened on day 1, because the fallout from that single event has continued to define this conflict in ways that go far beyond the battlefield. On February 28, 2026, the first day of the U.S.-Israeli war on Iran, a missile struck the Shajara Tayyibeh Girls Elementary School in Minab, in southern Iran's Hormozgan province. According to Iranian authorities, 168 people were killed. The majority were schoolgirls between the ages of 7 and 12. The school had called parents that morning with an urgent message. The war had started. Come pick up your children. Many parents were on their way. They didn't make it in time. 3 airstrikes hit the school. The explosion destroyed at least half of the 2-story building. Children were buried under the rubble. In the days that followed, a critical question emerged. Who did this? President Trump said publicly, and I am quoting him, "We think it was done by Iran because they're very inaccurate with their munitions." But multiple independent investigations reached a different conclusion. New video footage, authenticated by CNN, shows a munition consistent with an American Tomahawk land attack missile striking a location inside the nearby IRGC military base, with a massive plume of smoke visible from the direction of the school at the same moment. A preliminary U.S. government assessment reported by CBS News suggests the United States is likely responsible for the strike, though investigators believe the school was not intentionally targeted. The working theory is that dated intelligence wrongly identified the area as still part of the military installation. UN human rights experts characterized the strike as a potential war crime under the Rome Statute. They stated clearly there is no excuse for killing girls in a classroom. Human Rights Watch, which verified and analyzed 14 videos and photographs from the scene, called for an immediate war crimes investigation. The organization specifically noted that the school's location near the IRGC compound did not in and of itself make the school a legitimate military target. On Capitol Hill, Democratic Senator Chris Murphy of Connecticut called the strike unforgivable and questioned the competence of the Department of Defense. Defense Secretary Hegseth said the incident is under investigation. No final accountability determination has been made. 168 children. Their names have not been released. Their faces have not been shown. Iran's internet blackout, which began the moment strikes started on February 28th, has made independent verification from the ground nearly impossible. We simply know what the evidence shows. And what it shows is deeply troubling. Over the past 3 days, the Trump administration has sent a series of contradictory signals about this war. On Monday, Trump gave conflicting statements throughout a series of remarks about the Iran war strategy. He said the war was nearly over, but later told House Republicans that we haven't won enough. Trump told reporters the U.S. has struck more than 5,000 targets, claiming Iran's Navy and Air Force have been largely destroyed. He said the war would end very soon, then clarified it would not end this week. Those statements moved markets immediately and dramatically. Oil prices plunged as much as 10% on Tuesday after Trump's comments, before recovering losses when Hegseth contradicted him, saying the war would not end until the enemy is totally and decisively defeated. One president, 2 contradictory messages, market swinging $25 a barrel in a single day. Meanwhile, the State Department is quietly making moves that tell a very different story than almost over. The U.S. Embassy in Riyadh ordered the departure of all non-emergency government employees and the family members of all workers from Saudi Arabia, citing direct safety risks to U.S. personnel. The U.S. and Israel have also discussed the possibility of deploying special forces to seize Iran's stockpile of highly enriched uranium, a mission that, according to Axios, would likely take place at a later stage of the war. And in Oslo, Norwegian police said a blast at the U.S. Embassy, which caused no injuries, is being investigated as a potential act of terrorism. This does not look like a conflict in its final hours. One of the defining characteristics of this conflict is how far its effects are now reaching beyond Iran itself. In Lebanon, the war between Israel and Iranian-backed Hezbollah has now killed more than 400 people, including 83 children and 42 women, according to Lebanon's health ministry. Turkish air defenses, part of NATO, shot down an Iranian ballistic missile as it entered Turkish airspace. This marked the first time a NATO member's air defense system engaged Iranian munitions directly during this conflict. Australia announced it will deploy a military surveillance aircraft to the Middle East and send missiles to the UAE to help bolster its air defenses. Prime Minister Anthony Albanese confirmed the decision. Australia would not put troops on the ground. In the skies above the region, civilian aviation has been severely disrupted. British Airways has cancelled flights across the Middle East. Multiple international carriers have suspended routes, rerouting aircraft at significant additional cost. And there is one more story out of this war that has captured international attention for entirely different reasons. 5 members of the Iranian women's soccer squad sought asylum in Australia, where they were competing in the Women's Asian Cup, after fears they would face punishment at home for not singing the national anthem before their first match. The Australian government granted humanitarian visas to the players. Even sport cannot exist outside the reach of what is happening. So here's where we stand tonight, on day 11 of a war that the United States is now deeply financially and militarily invested in. 7 American service members are dead. Gas prices are up nearly 17%. The global oil market has experienced what analysts are calling the single biggest supply disruption in the history of the industry. Iran has signaled clearly that it is prepared for a long war, and that economic pain, not military defeat, is its primary weapon. Iran has threatened that not 1 liter of oil will leave the Middle East until US and Israeli attacks cease. Trump says it will be over soon. His defense secretary said it won't end until total victory. Markets don't know which statement to believe, neither do America's allies. This conflict was sold to the American public as a targeted